rather nervously. So I like to have like two stories, and I have two stories, one of which, I only do one, but I have two stories I'd like to perform, one of which is titled Youth Tickets and takes place in Japan, and the other one is entitled Directionless Testosterone and takes place in Southern California. So, Japan? California. Japan. All right. So this story is called Youth Tickets, and this happened on New Year's 2004. So coming up on a decade ago, when I was younger and had more hair, and I still had a lust for life. These days, I have to really get it together to come the 8 blocks all the way to Word Up Bookstore. It was like 6:45. I was like, oh gosh, gotta get through the snow. Anyway, I was living outside of Tokyo, and I was teaching English. And the reason why I picked those two stories is because when I think of honor being the theme tonight, Japan comes to mind because honor is like a big deal there, like face and things like that. And pick the other story because my parents are in it, and honor your parents. But I did something, I guess, somewhat dishonorable when I was in Japan. Well, a couple of things dishonorable when I was in Japan. But in terms of this story, basically, I was teaching at this school, and I was the head teacher, and I, got the more advanced students. And perhaps my most advanced student was a girl named Chiaki. And she was about my age, and she was working for a foreign company, and she had to pass a number of tests and give presentations to her Western bosses, and that led to a lot of late night study sessions. And of course the school was on a complex where my house was also, so sometimes I'd invite her back for coffee. And well, we were the same age. And I guess you really shouldn't, as they say, shit where you eat, but I don't know, she seemed inclined, I was inclined. She was always my last student on Friday night. And so, after one Friday night, I was like, hey, I'm going to go get a drink. You want to come with me? Da-da-da-da-da. Anyway, so we got involved, but she kept coming as a student, and I kept, teaching her as a student. But she really was opened my eyes to something interesting. Now, in Japan, people are very closed off. They have these two kind of ways to be. There's the way you are in public, and there's the way you are kind of in private. And because I got to know her so well, I got to see who she was in private. And she was a different sort of person. She hadn't been married by 30. This is unusual in Japan. And she dyed her hair red and wore these hippie dresses. And I always thought she was one of the more emotionally distinct people in Japan that I knew, because most people in Japan, they're closed off. They have this certain behavior that they comport themselves with, and that's how society gets along, and that's how you act. And as a professional person, or even just in society, you don't see this. You don't see the feelings. You don't see the thoughts. They're there. These people aren't robots, but you don't see them because they will interrupt the orderly flow of society. And I got to see this with Chiaki. Now, in Japanese society, the biggest holiday is New Year's. Western New Year's, not Chinese New Year's, not the Lunar New Year, but Western New Year's is the big holiday. It's Christmas and Thanksgiving and the 4th of July all kind of rolled up into one week-long celebration. And so my school was closed, and I didn't really have anything to do. And because there's this week-long celebration, the Japanese Railroad has a special that they offer to everyone. It's mostly for college students, but they're like, for $150, you can ride all the trains all over the country, except for the super bullet trains. You can ride any train you want all week long for $150. And so when people ask me, it's kind of like, what are you going to do for Christmas vacation? What are you going to do for New Year's? They're like, oh, what are you going to do? I'm like, well, I'm going to buy this ticket, and I'm going to go somewhere. I don't know where I'm going to go. And to my surprise, when Chiaki asked me, a week or two before, what are you going to do? I told her, yeah, I'm just going to hop on a train, and I'm going to travel all over Japan for a week and, see what I see. And she was like, well, why don't I come with you? And I was like, oh, okay, great. We had been we've been intimate, but I wouldn't say she was my girlfriend. We spent time together, but we didn't really go on dates. She'd kind of hang out after on Friday. Maybe we'd have dinner now and then, but I didn't think of her as my girlfriend. But when she said this, I was like, all right, this is cool. That way, it won't be too intense. We'll just travel together over the New Year's vacation. So I remember it was December 30th. We met up, and it was cool because we tried to get on the train at like 12:01. So we would like maximize the amount of it was like 5 consecutive days we could travel. So we if we started just after midnight, we get the full 24 hours and so on and so forth. And it was funny because the trains were packed. I mean, I don't know if you've been on a packed train in New York. No, this is Japan, where they have people shoving other people into the train. So I mean, it was packed, and this is not just like a subway. This is not just a light rail. This is like a railroad that's going to go across the country. So we get packed into these subways. There's no seats, of course. People are all up and down the highway, and so we kind of sit down in the vestibule where the doors open, and I put my arms around her because it's cold, because it's December, and we're all packed in together, and we're trying to comprise enough space. And I bet you that we look really funny, because here I am sitting down on the floor, and I've got my paperback in one hand, and she's sitting in front of me, and she's doodling or doing something, and so it's this big giant foreigner with this little Japanese girl kind of sitting right on his lap or inside of him. And she's doing her thing, I'm doing my thing. The sun came up. We were in Nagoya, which is where where Toyota is, and we decided to get out and see the sights in Nagoya. And that was very interesting because Nagoya has a reputation for being a very sexual town. There's lots and lots of what they call health spas, where it's kind of a rub and tug kind of deal. And these soap lands where basically you get naked and a girl comes up and soaps you up. And we just kind of got charged up by this. So we were ducking in alleys and making out, and then we'd go to sit together at the sushi bar, and we'd be reaching under the table. And so the passion between us is getting more exciting. We've been sitting together, and then we're fooling around in Nagoya. We get back on the train. The train takes us all the way up into the mountains. I don't know if you can visualize the island of Japan. We're starting over in Tokyo, and now we're up here by Nagoya, and I know Japanese geography isn't the first thing on your mind, but we're crossing over past into the western part of Japan, and we have to change trains, and then it's freezing cold outside, and we change trains while we're waiting on the platform. We're kind of sitting next to each other, and we're just used to being kind of attached to the hip at this point, because every time we're on a train, and because we have to take the local trains, we're not allowed to take the bullet trains, we'll take the local trains. So we're going from one packed train to another, to another, to another. We're just kind of used to being attached to the hips. Finally, we decided our destination was going to be Hiroshima. And Hiroshima is obviously, far to the west, and obviously it's famous for the nuclear explosion there. And but it's also a vibrant city with lots of interesting cultural things going on there, and it's steeped in Japanese history. And we just decided that was as far as we wanted to go. So we stopped in Osaka for a little while, and we made our last shot. We'd already been traveling on trains for 36 hours, and we made our last shot to Hiroshima. And when we got there, we had been so close to each other, and so kind of, we had this tense passion going with each other. We finally got to Hiroshima, and being on the train for 12 hours, we were just full of vibration and full of excitement and full of kind of tension and passion for each other. We got to the hotel, and we exorcised those demons, and then we went out into the city, just as about 10 o'clock on New Year's Eve, and we went and had something to eat, and then we just started walking around the city, and we were walking by the river that goes through the city, and we were holding hands, and I swear it was almost perfect, because the snow just was starting to fall, and it was just that nice light kind of snow. And I remember we passed the Peace Dome, which is the last structure that's standing from the atomic explosion, and so we got real quiet after we passed there, and we were just kind of walking back to the hotel along this river. And I looked at her, and she looked at me, and we kissed, and I felt for 10 seconds, we were a perfect couple. for just 10 seconds. Even though, I was her teacher, she was my student, we really should never have hooked up, but we did. And I was, she obviously had her plans, and I had my plans, and, we weren't really going to be boyfriend and girlfriend, but for 10 seconds, in the snow, by the river, by the Peace Dome, in the middle of this, famous, historic, monumental place, this American, this Japanese girl, we had like this really great moment. And like that's what I remember from New Year's 2004. Now, needless to say, the next day we got up and we did some more touring, and we saw this famous shrine. And I don't know if you've ever seen this World Heritage site. That's kind of a famous vision of like 3 orange stakes coming out of the water with a kind of a Shinto shrine over it. I don't know if you know this symbol, but it's a place called the Wajishima. It's very, very famous. It's what a lot of people think of when they think of Japanese cultural shrines. And we saw that, and we traveled back, and we made our way slowly back. We didn't travel as quickly back from Hiroshima to Tokyo as we went towards there, so we kind of took it easy. But I don't know if you've ever been with somebody 24 hours a day. Like, have you ever been with someone 24 hours a day, like this far apart from them? Like, after that apex of New Year's Eve, we kind of started to get on each other's nerves a little bit, and kind of just like getting a little annoyed. And then, of course, the banks were closed for some reason because it's a holiday, so we ran out of money like halfway home, and that put a lot of stress on us. And well, when we finally got back to Tokyo, we went our separate ways, and towards the end of the next week, she came to class, and I, taught her, and we kind of went back to I thought we were going back to our old roles of, we'll teach you, I'll teach you, and you'll be a student, and, maybe we'll hang out from time to time, but it's just going to go back to the old ways. And so the next time I hung out at her house, I noticed that she had turned her computer's wallpaper to a picture of us from Hiroshima, and she had printed another picture of us, and that was sitting on our desk. And that's when I realized that no, actually I hadn't understood her emotionally, and I really didn't have insight into who this person was on the inside. And as distinct as I thought her emotional character was, I couldn't map that territory. It was not what I was not where I thought I was on that map. And so I had to make some decisions, and things went one way, and things went another way. And I remember the last time I saw Chiaki, I had moved from Tokyo to Osaka, and she had basically just kind of jumped me and surprised me one day in downtown Osaka. And last time I saw her, she was on a train platform, and she was crying, and I had another youth ticket in my hand, but I was heading west, and she was heading east. Bye.